The Roman Republic was famously a system built on the tension between patricians and plebeians. The patricians were the aristocratic elite, controlling the Senate, the highest offices, and the levers of power. The plebeians, on the other hand, were the common citizens, farmers, artisans, and laborers, who were subject to the laws made by men whose wealth and birth gave them authority. Over centuries, this imbalance led to a struggle known as the conflict of the orders, a slow, often agonizing negotiation over rights, protections, and influence. One of the earliest gains of the plebeians had been the establishment of the tribune of the plebs around 494 BCE, an office designed to defend plebeian interests. Tribunes could veto certain magistrates' decisions and protect citizens from abuses. But political influence was still limited. While tribunes could protect individuals, they could not, on their own, make laws binding on the entire republic. The plebeian struggle was therefore both legal and symbolic. It was a fight to transform their social equality into legal and political authority. Over time, the plebeians gained the right to pass resolutions known as plebiscita through the Concilium Plebis, their own assembly. These resolutions initially applied only to plebeians, meaning they had little effect on the broader legal framework dominated by patricians. However, the legal status of plebiscites gradually increased, particularly after the Lex Valeria Horatia of 449 BCE, which declared that plebiscites could bind all Romans if approved by the Senate. Yet, in practice, patrician resistance often muted their impact. It was not until 287 BCE, under the consulship of Quintus Hortensius, that a decisive breakthrough occurred, the Lex Hortensia. This law declared that plebiscites passed by the Concilium Plebis were binding on all citizens, including patricians, without needing Senate approval. In other words, it made plebeian resolutions full-fledged Roman law. The passage of the Lex Hortensia was more than a technical legal reform, it represented a victory for the principle of popular sovereignty in the Republic. The plebeians had won the right to legislate directly, reducing the patricians' monopoly over lawmaking. This law also marked a significant turning point in the conflict of the orders, demonstrating that political struggle could yield systemic, lasting changes, rather than temporary concessions. The social context of the Lex Hortensia is particularly fascinating. It came after a period of economic hardship, where plebeians threatened secession, withdrawing from Rome in protest, a recurring strategy in the struggle for rights. These secessions were not violent uprisings but organized political strikes that demonstrated the plebeians' indispensability to the Roman economy and military. The Lex Hortensia can thus be seen as a pragmatic solution. Rome could not afford to ignore the demands of its largest citizen group. Politically, the law had several profound effects. 1. Empowerment of the plebeian assembly. With plebiscites now legally binding, the Concilium Plebis became a true legislative force, capable of shaping the legal framework of the Republic. 2. Reduction of patrician dominance. The Senate's role in approving plebiscite resolutions was effectively nullified, limiting the patrician elite's control over lawmaking. 3. Foundation for future reforms. Lex Hortensia paved the way for more egalitarian measures, including more inclusive political offices and, eventually, the rise of leaders who could appeal directly to the popular assemblies. 4. Model for citizen participation. It set a precedent for balancing aristocratic authority with popular consent, a recurring theme in Roman constitutional development. Despite its revolutionary character, the Lex Hortensia did not erase all inequalities. Social hierarchies remained entrenched, and the political system still favored the wealthy and influential. Yet, by legally empowering the plebeians, it fundamentally shifted the architecture of power in Rome. The importance of the Lex Hortensia can also be understood in the broader context of Roman law. Roman legal tradition was built on precedent, debate, and codification. By making plebiscites binding, the law effectively integrated the voice of the common people into the formal legal structure, a step toward a more participatory and inclusive system, even if far from democratic by modern standards. Interestingly, the Lex Hortensia also influenced Rome's later expansion. As plebeians became more politically empowered, their loyalty to the state strengthened, ensuring a more cohesive citizen body capable of supporting Rome's growing military and administrative needs. In a way, legal inclusion translated into political stability and practical strength, allowing Rome to consolidate power internally before extending it externally. From a historical perspective, the Lex Hortensia is a striking example of legal innovation born from social pressure. It demonstrates how a marginalized group, through persistent advocacy, negotiation, and the strategic use of collective action, can reshape institutional structures. The law's passage also reflects the Roman Republic's flexibility, its capacity to adapt ancient institutions to new social realities without collapsing, a hallmark of Roman political longevity. In contemporary terms, the Lex Hortensia can be seen as an early form of popular legislative empowerment. It resonates with modern ideas of citizen representation, participatory democracy, and the principle that legal authority should derive from the consent of the governed. Although centuries apart, the core idea remains relevant. Laws are most legitimate when they reflect the collective will, not just the interests of a privileged few. In conclusion, the Lex Hortensia was far more than a procedural adjustment in Roman law. It was a symbolic and practical triumph for ordinary citizens, embedding their voice into the core of republican governance. It exemplifies the interplay of law, society, and politics in a system that, despite its hierarchical foundations, could accommodate meaningful reform. The plebeians' victory reminds us that even in rigid structures, persistent advocacy and strategic action can yield transformative outcomes, a lesson that transcends time and culture.